Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mason Miller Show. Tonight, we welcome Coach Hurtis for some sodas and some stories. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So we're going to try out one of these sodas you picked. Which one do you want to try first, the cream soda or the Mother Road?
Let's try the Mother Road.
All right.
What made you choose this one, Coach?
I like the name.
You just because it has Route 66 on it?
Yeah, I had Route 66, and it sounds like a good name.
All right. Pour a little in your glass and
Try it out.
pass it on down.
I haven't had this one yet, so.
Well, we'll all get a new taste then, huh?
So are you a big lover of root beer, Coach?
No. I know.
It's a pretty strong no.
I am really not.
When you're a young whippersnapper patrolling the...
We used to have Dog and Suds in Olney. Everybody went to Dog and Suds, and you made the trip 2.5 miles around. Everybody running the circles back when gas was 29 cents a gallon, and before all of you were ever born or even were a twinkle in your dad's eye. But we went to Dog and Suds then, and that's how I drank root beer. Mary Lou Rule, who used to say her name was Mary Lou Rule, was the runner of Dog and Suds.
Mary Woo Woo.
Yeah, Mary Lou Rule.
You said in Olney? That was your hometown, Olney? Or White
no,
Squirrels?
it was not my hometown. We've talked about this many times. I was not from Olney. I was from Noble, and you had to go to Olney if you wanted anything like fast food or anything because Noble didn't have it.
Why are you so against all the people of Olney?
They're nerds. And, I mean, think about it. You've got a city that makes their fame off of white squirrels. I mean, there's a lot of things you can think about. I mean, we had oil wells in Noble. They had white squirrels in Olney.
Right. Well, you came out swinging, so that's good. So,
Want to try this out?
all right.
Let's try
a little bit of... I know you've been wanting to get at this root beer, Coach. So
Yes,
we'll
I
give it a
have.
try.
Here we go.
It's a classical root beer.
Good root beer. Classical. You're right. It is.
Very traditional.
I would say that's right there with Rat Bastard. That's very traditional. Good.
Well, I don't know about the Rat Bastard, but that was good root beer.
Coach, if anybody knows about the Rat Bastard, I think you do. What's going
Yeah, you're trying to get me in trouble.
No. All right. Yeah, that's not bad. I like just the plain straight root beer, just the traditional old tasting root beer.
Yeah, it'd be a little better with tequila in it, but that's all right.
All right.
So, Coach, tell us a little about where you grew up.
I grew up in the big city of Noble, Megagopolis in southern Illinois. We had 700 people in our town, and I lived 5.5 miles out in the country. And back in the day, we didn't have video games. We also didn't have phones, running water, or indoor toilets. But it was a great childhood.
Wait, so how long you had an outhouse then?
Until I was 14.
14.
Yeah, 14.
That's a long time.
Lightning hit our house when I was about 18. We redid it, but we did put running water in when we were 14.
Man.
That's a long time.
Man, those winter nights in February had to be rough.
Well,
Tiptoeing it out there.
yeah, I actually got into trouble a few times because I wouldn't go all the way, and the evidence was there in the morning. And in the summertime, I had a window, and I didn't realize that if you relieved yourself through the window, it would rust. And my mom was in there with a yardstick the next day, and so I found out you need to really go outside.
It's funny you say that because I did the same thing. I remember when I was little, I was on the second story, and we had a screen in the window, no air conditioning, probably very similar, and I didn't pull the screen out and was in the middle of the night because you had to go all the way downstairs to go to the restroom, and I let her fly in there. Just finally got a rusty spot in that screen, and Judy was not having that.
Oh, I bet.
No. So.
Well, nobody had air conditioning back then. We had a little canopy over the front door, and we would go outside and sleep on it in the summertime because you didn't, like you say, you didn't have air conditioning. Today you think you die without it. Back then we did, but the deal was I don't know. I assume we really stunk because we took a bath once a week.
Oh,
and other than that, well, we swam in a creek and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
You know, it was a different
That'll
different
do.
era.
Now, did I mean, so you didn't have running water? How'd you take a bath in the house?
We had, like everybody else, a tub, and you in the wintertime you heated the water up on the cold stove, and you poured it in there, and then you would freshen it up a little bit. The old saying, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," was because the baby got the last bath. The father took it first, and then as you went down, and I'm sure it was very hygienical. I don't think there was any problems with it, but that's the way you took a bath back in the day.
You didn't have COVID back then, did you?
We didn't have COVID. We didn't have the flu. We didn't have a cold. I grew up in a upstairs, like you said. We never had any heat, but I had a bunch of quilts and an old feather bed, and you just rolled into it, and you never moved, and you never got sick. It was not the worst way to live.
Yeah.
How many siblings did you have?
Siblings, what are siblings? You mean brothers and sisters? Oh, I had one brother and 3 sisters.
So Brother Bill, were you the middle? Were you in the middle? Did you have one or two younger
No,
than you?
I was the baby of the family for 13 years. My oldest sister, Winnie, is 12 years older than me, or 11 and a half. My brother was 10 and a half years older than me. My sister, Alta, was 6 years older than me. And I am 13 years older than my youngest sister. Mom and Dad had a child when they were 45.
Wow.
So we had a difference of 24 years between the oldest and youngest. I don't know if it's a record, but Mom and Dad had kids in the Noble School District for 36 consecutive years.
Oh, wow.
That is that's too long.
Well, yeah, it was too long. My youngest sister grew up with parents that we didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's such a gap in between. It's tough to even.
Well, they kind of spoiled her, but not me. I was always told I was the best child that they ever had. I was very easily disciplined, and I followed all the rules.
That's
and no
terrifying.
problems.
Yeah,
If it's true.
I doubt that.
No, it's the truth. I was very good.
What was Brother Bill like?
Brother Bill and I, as I've told you before, we're kind of cut from the same cloth. He left when he went to the Army. He graduated a year early. So he went to the Army when he was 17. And he used to tell me that the house was full of ghosts and that sort of thing. And then later on he became more like an uncle to me, but a very, very good guy. But he, unlike me, he likes to get in people's cage and rattle them a little bit, stuff like that. I never wanted to do that, but he would make fun of people and laugh at them and stuff. I'm not that way.
No,
Not at
you're
all.
much more of a
Calm person.
right. Now, my only experience with Brother Bill was, and we've told you this before, but it was, I think might have been your first, I think it was it would have been your first year back coaching here on your final stint. And so Brother Bill trekked up from Noble with your sister. She brought him up to watch a game, watch the Coach Hurtis come back. And so Malcolm, our oldest son, was a sophomore at that time. And so they were Malcolm, Turner, Cade Watson, that group, and you were letting them have it a little bit. And I remember after the game, we were standing over there talking to your brother, and Jill and I, my wife, had introduced ourselves, and we were just shooting the breeze with him. And Malcolm comes walking across the gym floor, and you were kind of walking behind him, and he was walking over to talk to some people. And Brother Bill said, "Boy, I tell you what, I got to talk to that brother of mine, because man, was he hard on that kid right there." And Jill said, "Well, that's our son." And he goes, "Well, I'm sorry."
Well, you've got to understand now, when I got back into this business, it was Jill's fault. She kept bringing Malcolm over. We'd go through games when he was a freshman and that sort of thing. And
You got the itch.
But what led you to come back? What was the final push?
I just got to watching games again, and at the time, as most people know, my wife wasn't doing really well, and it was just something I needed at the time. Basketball has always been my passion. The only thing I ever loved more than basketball was Marie. But we did games. I got to thinking about it. I got to watching it. I'd done a lot of radio and that sort of thing. And since the position opened up, I decided to take it. But I told Malcolm from the get-go that if he wanted to be good, I would coach him a little different than everybody else. So, yes, I was a little well, I was more subtle than I used to be, but I was on him a little bit, that sort of thing. And Brother Bill, he just was looking for a way to gig me.
It was never anything. My brother played in the 80s for you, and some of the other guys that played back then, Mike Holland, some of those guys, they saw you in your final version, and everybody thought you were so hard on them and all that. And I remember my brother said, "This is Coach Hurtis light. Are you kidding me? This is like 45% of what his full rap is."
Well,
I don't want to see the full.
No, you don't. The one thing, the group of kids if I ever apologize to a group of kids, but I don't apologize, as you know, Mason, because that shows a sign of weakness. But if I ever apologize to a group of kids, it'd be the first group of kids I had at Windsor, because I was 22 and I knew everything. I had no doubt about this, that, or the other thing, and everything I did was right, and they were wrong. And we started practice one night at this was back before girls basketball or anything else, and we started practice one night at 3:20. And finally, my assistant coach came up to me and said, we need to let him go. And I said, "Why would we let him go? We haven't anything right all night long." He said, "It's 8:15. So, it'd been a rather long practice. That'd be the only group of kids that I would ever say that, maybe I should, but I won't.
Oh, there'd have to be, you can imagine now, there'd be like full-on riot from the parents. Emergency board meeting. Oh, no way.
Well,
no.
Probably should have been then, but it was a different world back in the day.
But then you fast forward to now, and you had to adapt after your first year of coaching.
Yes, you learn things as you get older, and one of the things that I learned more than anything was as a basketball analyst, I did a lot of radio stuff, and you begin to watch and learn things and see things that you did, and you decide, well, maybe I should do them differently. Like, for instance, I have had over my career a little bit of trouble, not much, but just a little bit of trouble with referees. And, I finally figured out that if you talk to the back of their head instead of just yell at them, you can get some stuff done without that sort of thing. But yeah, you adapt, and of course I was older, and I had a very severe lesson taught to me about what was important and what wasn't, and I began to realize that they probably would never, most of them, ever consider that it was as important as I thought it was. I remember when we had Pastor Ray. He came up to me after Meridian.
Ray Offerman,
great guy, wonderful
Amazing
guy. He came up to me one time after a game at Meridian, and he said, I don't see some of the plays being as egregious as you do. And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't see some sins being as bad as you do either. So we had that one solved.
It was mutual. He agreed to just, okay, I'll stay in my lane, you stay in yours.
Yeah, he stayed there and I did too.
So you have all this, you're 22, you got all this fire and passion and energy. Tell me about Mr. Hurtis. Where did that come from? Where did all this come from? Tell me about Ma and Pa Hurtis.
Well, my dad, John W., who everybody called Big John, was a big man, and he was outgoing, to say the least. I have said this before, and I know you and Jill never believe it, and it's probably not really true, but at times he would make me almost look like a wallflower. He had no filter at all. But don't get me wrong, he was a wonderful man and a wonderful father, and my mom was the salt of the earth. She was one of those people that she did everything, and she was always there. If I had to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, she'd get up at 3 and make breakfast. I mean, those kind of things. So I was raised in a very wonderful home, but discipline was a part of it. Discipline, right. You were expected to do certain things. And the other side of that was, I really feel like this is something that's very important, that I didn't want to disappoint my parents. And I didn't want to get disciplined either, but I didn't want to disappoint my parents. So you didn't. So my childhood, growing up, I was raised in a family that believed in discipline, hard work. You have to have certain beliefs, and I followed that.
What'd your dad do for a living?
My dad worked in an oil field. He was a rod and tubing man, and his claim to fame was that he could take a cheater bar, a 15-inch cheater bar, and turn it one more turn if everybody else had a 36-inch cheater bar. He was a big, strong man, and Dad was he was outgoing. He was larger than life.
Tell me about the story when you were playing basketball somewhere, and I can't remember what you said. You were inbounding the ball or whatever.
Well, we were playing in Sumner, Illinois, one another large megagopolis that we played in down in the day, and they only had seats on one side of the gym. And so we're taking the ball out on the far end, and I hear the out referee, the guy down the other end, he goes, "Sir, if you don't be quiet, I'm going to throw you out of the gym." And then I heard this voice say, "You might ask me to leave, but you won't throw me out." And so they kind of let it settle down. And the referee was handing me the ball, and he said, "I wonder who that was." And as I passed it, I said, "That's my dad." And it was.
And then what was the one about you were saying the other night about he could about the teacher that said something about you leading you to water, but couldn't make you drink?
Well, we had a teacher named Maud Hans who I had for 4 consecutive years.
What's Maud up to these days?
Well, she's dead. She and I had a little bit of a problem, and
What kind of a problem?
well, I didn't like her, and I was going to put
was
And she didn't
mutual,
like
I'm
you.
sure.
No, she didn't like me either.
Well
But anyway,
deserved.
long story short, cut to the chase. We were walking down the street one time, and I was with Dad, and she came up to him and she said, "Well, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink." And about that time, Dad put his hand on each side of my neck and started squeezing. And he said, "I can make him drink." So Maud never had any more trouble with me.
You gulped up whatever Maud was putting out after that because you knew that Mr. Hurtis was waiting for you at home if that was going to be an
Yes,
issue.
you did not cross Big John.
Well, that was the difference back in those days too, right or wrong. You know, if there was an issue with a teacher or coach or something like that, you'd fear your parent more than whatever the teacher or the coach were going to.
Yeah, I guarantee you, I could have whipped most of my teachers, but I couldn't whip my dad.
Right, and he was going to have none of it.
Yeah, he had none of it. No, you didn't know.
So one other thing before we take a little, first break here is one thing that I think is interesting. I mean, so you're an avid golfer now in your retirement, but one
Old
thing,
age.
yeah, old age. Let's just be honest, old age. One thing, there's a few things that shocked me over the years as I moved from student, and being fearful to getting to know you a little bit. Movies and music and books. Let's talk
Now,
a
this
little
is
bit.
something that you would never guess if you didn't.
Let's talk a little bit about movies won't shock people.
The greatest female singer ever in the
Oh,
world
gosh.
is Barbara Streisand.
She
A wonderful
sucks.
voice, wonderful voice. John Wayne is obviously my favorite movie star because he reminded me some of my dad, and I loved all the things about that. But I am a fantasy book reader. I love books that expand your mind, and I hear people say, "Well, that's not real." Well, it's not supposed to be real. I love where they develop the story. The greatest books I ever read was Wheel of Time. There's 16 of them. They're all 1,600 to 1,800 pages long. But it was so good. It was so developed. I could get wrapped up in that. And yeah, the people that know me, that don't know me, don't understand that that's kind of where I go. But you really don't want to get in my head because it's more involved than most people think.
So the John Wayne thing, I see that. I mean, I'm with
yeah.
you on that. I love John Wayne. I about felt so. I rode with you. I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago, and over to scout some team. I remember one night you're like, "Hey, you want to ride along?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Had never really been around you socially, and some song came on the radio, and I was like, "Man, what are you listening to?" And then you proceed to start telling me, we started debating about music, and you said, "Oh, greatest singer ever is Barbara Streisand." And I thought for sure you were kidding. I kept looking at, and you're dead serious about that, which I couldn't believe that is your favorite singer. And it says
Female singer.
female singer. Well, I know who your favorite male singer is.
Yeah.
The
Who's
King.
that?
The King.
The King. There's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think people misinterpret a lot of things about people. My voice, as all of you know, carries.
Somewhat.
But a lot of times is what I always try to tell kids.
Voice of an angel.
Yeah. I always tried to tell the kids,
not what I thought.
and I include everybody I ever coached as a kid. I've got 62-year-old kids, but I always told them, listen to what I'm saying, not the sound. But I realized it got in their heads, a few of them, that sort of thing. But I am my own person. I am comfortable in my own skin. I think sometimes people aren't. I am. And to that point, I know what I like. I know what I know what I care for, and I like Barbra Streisand.
Yeah, that and the books that have flying dragons and stuff that you're okay. And both
Aragon. Everybody should read Aragon.
Now,
well, whatever it is, I respect and like the fact that you'll just, I mean, you know, you're a man's man, but you just put that right out there. So it is a good lesson for everyone to be comfortable in your own skin, and you know, not everybody has to like the same things, and you're entitled to be wrong, which you are about Barbra Streisand, but that's okay. So
we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Coach Hurtis on the Mason Miller Show.
Triton Tees is a locally owned and operated business right here in Shelbyville, Illinois. They specialize in Lake Shelbyville apparel, and their products can be found at Lithia Springs Marina, Jake's Antiques, or on their website, tritontees.com. Make sure to give them a look.
Welcome back to the Mason Miller Show. We're joined by Coach Hurtis. And before we ended at the break, you were mentioning movies and stuff like that, and you mentioned John Wayne. Which one is your favorite John Wayne movie?
True Grit, without a doubt. When the end of True Grit, when he was leaving the place, remember, and he jumped the horse over the fence?
Yeah.
And saying, come up and see an old fat man sometime.
I'm guessing you stood up in the movie theater and
my wife was very chagrined because I was standing up in the chair and I was giving it the yeah, you know, that sort of stuff. So that was one of the few times I ever embarrassed my wife in 47 years. There were a couple more, but very few.
a few.
I know. Would you expand on that a little bit? Tell a story, but tell them, what about the Mattoon Airport?
Well, when we were at Windsor, we used to go over to Mattoon Airport, and he had really good food over there. And we'd had a pretty good meal and that sort of thing. And we were coming out, and they have the foyer where they have the people come off the planes and come in, and they had a podium there. And I've had a little problem with podiums. We might go into that later. But I got up there, and they were coming off, so there may have been some beverages involved. I don't know. But anyway,
it wasn't root beer.
My mom drugged me to every revival. Do you know what a revival is, Mason?
Not really.
Revivals where they used to have either in the church or tent. They would come in the summertime, and they would save people because they had these guys that would do the hellfire and brimstone speeches.
They do it in your hometown of Olney?
No, Noble. And, Clay, I hate you.
That's a long line.
So
Yeah.
I got up there, and they were coming off, and I just stepped up there, and I started to tell them about repentance and getting down on their knees, and that they were sinners, and they were starting to give me a little bit of money. Because
people coming off the airplanes? Or
they were
in?
people coming off the airplanes, and my wife started telling me that I needed to quit that, but I was on a roll, and I was doing good, and I was making a little money. So that night, she rode home with somebody else. I don't know for sure who she rode, but when I got home, I got supper the next night, and I got the kind of supper you get when you get in trouble with your wife. I got cold shoulder and hot lip, but that was the deal with the airport.
How did the feel? Was your neck out of place from sleeping on the couch that night?
I didn't sleep on the couch. She did.
Oh, she was really mad, huh? She didn't want to be near you.
That was. But she was a wonderful woman, so she forgave me.
So, Coach, tell us a little bit about your college years. What type of student were you?
Where you met that woman? Where you met Marie?
Let me tell you. I'm going to tell you something about what kind of student I was. I was a fantastic student. I was asked to join one of the elite academic groups, and I didn't because they would have fallen over laughing when they actually found out what I had done, because I took all of the stuff I had to take in junior college, which my grades weren't that good, but then I was Mickey Mouse stuff in college, and then I did well. But I was at Eastern, and I played basketball there. And I came out the first night, and I was sitting there, and I looked out on the floor, and there was, I don't know, 7 cheerleaders, whatever there were, but 3 of them were from the old Midland Trail Conference, which I played in high school. There was 2 girls from Clay City who I actually knew better than the girl from Dietrich, who happened to become my wife. But one thing led to another, and we got together. I had planned on all these things, and she changed everything for me. She made me marry her. I didn't really want to, but I mean, you know. So all the things that I had planned, we got married, and I would never do anything different. But that was an interesting thing. I was up there at Eastern and ran into a girl from Dietrich.
Well, did she fall in love with you? Probably not because of you, but it's probably because of the fancy car you were driving at the time, right?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I had a '61 Bug.
Which I would give anything to see you.
What color
driving
was
a
it?
Volkswagen
I
Bug.
need to know.
Candy apple red, baby.
It's a good thing it wasn't tan.
No, it was candy apple red. And the only drawback was it didn't have a heater. So I would carry a blanket for her. And then we had trouble keeping the frost off the windshield, obviously, with no heater.
You could probably generate some hot air.
But, oh, that's nasty. Yeah, it was classic. It was a really good car, and I ruined it in 4 years.
Well, you know who else drove that car? Ted Bundy.
What are you saying?
It's not a good pick.
Oh,
Bad role model.
There was a ton. That campus had to be full of VW Bugs back in those days.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Eastern was a good time for me. We went over there, and my senior year, we were called running runts because we were really small. Our center was 6'3", and I was 6'2", and played a forward, and the other forward was 6'2", and we had a 5'9", 5'8" guards. But it was a really interesting season because I played for a guy named Don Eddy, who was without a doubt the best basketball coach I've ever met in my life.
Really?
Yes, he was a.
Why was he the best?
Because he could get you to go through a stone wall for him. I mean, if he told you to run through a wall, you did it without question. He demanded certain things, and he was just a wonderful guy. The only time I really resented him was when I was 10 minutes late for curfew one night, and he made me run 10 miles. But that I didn't really care for that. But Don Eddy was a wonderful person.
Was he an X's and O's guy, or was he a culture guy?
X's and O's, but you did what he told you to do. We had a bad basketball game. We were playing in Chicago State, and we were supposed to be a defensive team, and we got beat 102-98. And Coach Eddy took a little exception to it. So the next night when we came to practice, there were no basketballs there. And all we did was defensive slides and jingle jangles all night long for 2 hours.
For people who don't know, that's a suicide.
Yeah.
No, it's a jingle jangle. I never understood why you guys called them suicides. Nobody died.
It's just the translation for today.
He just made you
Nobody
guys,
knows what a jingle
just made you
jangle
guys want
is.
to.
Mason, you played for me. You got to admit,
Yeah.
we did not run that many suicides.
We only ran a few, and that's whenever you lost your voice and you were mad because you couldn't yell, so you took it out on the rest of the team, and then later kicked us out that day in practice.
Well, I kicked out every team I ever had one time.
Well, I know, but you already started off the day bad because you couldn't yell. You had to have the assistants yell for you.
But now, okay, I might buy into that.
That's what I thought. And then someone just had to throw a cross-court pass, and that was
Well,
Who did that?
It was probably me.
Probably.
freshman.
And
It probably was.
Mason, what do you remember most about what I told you?
What's the line you remember the most Coach Curtis saying to you?
That's tough. There's a lot.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, there's
We'll
one.
ask
There's
Malcolm.
one.
Well, everybody knows.
One that, Mason, what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Mason, what in the hell are you doing?
You know, people still come up to me in the hallway and they tell that to me.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, it's nice to be famous for something.
Right.
But then you told me when I was a freshman, the best thing about being a freshman is you get to be a sophomore next year. So they give
And the
you something
other-
to look forward to.
And the other thing, what about freshmen there to be what?
I don't remember.
Seen and not heard?
Freshmen don't speak.
That makes sense because
Yeah.
Especially when you say dumb things like Carl Malone died and you
Oh,
I
yeah.
I wasn't going to give up
I
on
was going
that,
to say,
though.
have you ever been more wrong in your life?
I knew I was wrong,
Yes.
but I couldn't give up. I
Well,
wasn't
there
going
you
to
go.
give in.
I gave you that one.
He'll ride that stuff to
Yeah.
his grave. You were a freshman, and it was summer. You weren't even into your freshman
No.
year, and you guys were going to Mount Zion to play. And I get up there, and in between games, Stick or somebody was talking to me, and they're like, "Oh, you should have heard the bus ride." Mason swore that Carl Malone had died, and we're all like, "No, he didn't. He hadn't either." And Coach Curtis finally turns around and goes, "Carl Malone is not dead." And then Mason still wouldn't give up, and Coach Curtis finally told him, "Freshman, what is it? Freshmen don't speak.
talk.
Yeah, freshmen don't talk."
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to stir some stuff up.
Well, you did that.
Yeah, you weren't too bad at that.
But
Right.
speaking of that,
Well, I mean, that's just the way things are. Freshmen had to carry bags. Freshmen have to do this.
oh
freshmen
yeah,
have
I
to
did
do
all that.
But you were good at that. You were a real good bag carrier. I remember that.
And ball.
That was your true gift.
Guess I could hold the ball pretty well.
Like, hey, you guys go on in and get dressed. I'll get these bags off the bus.
Yeah, it was his job.
I knew Coach Curtis had changed going into his last year of coaching when I went down there to watch a game in the summer, and it was after the games, and we had played well, and we only had about 6 guys, and Coach is walking out carrying water and towels and stuff like that, and all you guys were walking ahead, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, "You are kidding me. What are you carrying?" He's like, "Oh, I don't mind carrying it."
I always did that. I always carried. I carried water. I carried this. The thing about it is,
You would carry it out before a game sometimes, wouldn't you?
oh yeah, the kids. The greatest thing about coaching, and I mean this sincerely, the greatest thing about coaching is that you are trying to get kids to do something together and work hard and understand. And, if you get that, if you reach that point, then you have done something that you can be proud of. And I always thought that I gave these guys 3 things that I wanted out of them. And I was very serious. I sometimes think some of them didn't really buy into it, but my motto was pretty simple. It was play hard, play smart, and have fun. But to me, and this is what I sometimes didn't convey enough, I don't think, is if you didn't play hard and play smart, you couldn't have fun. The fun comes from playing hard and playing smart. And if you do those things, then the fun will follow. And, it's something that you have to understand that not every player that you have in high school has your desire or your want to.
Right.
You have a few every year, but you're going to have some that don't. And so you just work to get that together. And it's amazing. The last 3 years that I coached helped me more than I'm sure it helped the kids. It did so much for me over what the kids got out of it, I think. Now I think some of the kids got a lot of stuff out of it, don't get me wrong. But we were able to, I thought, at the end, play hard, play smart, and have fun.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
in the beginning, in the summer camp, when you first got here, first year, I was in like 8th grade, and you told our class we were doing something, and you stopped us all, and you said, "Now you're working hard. You're doing well at that, but the playing smart, it's about at a D- right now. You want to do that? You got to have some fun."
Well, one of the funniest things was they made us run that summer camp, and they started kids in the 3rd grade, which is too young. It's too young. But we had the 3rd grade kids, and so they got out there, and they said to me, "Are we getting popsicles after practice?" I said, "No, you're not getting any popsicles." I said, "The only thing you're going to learn here in this week is the most important thing you're going to learn is to listen." And so we had 3rd graders doing defensive slides, stuff like that. But it's rewarding. People don't understand how rewarding coaching is. It's a form of teaching, except that you take your classroom out and put it in front of people.
Yeah.
You're going out there and you're putting it out in front of people, and it's amazing how many people think they really know how to coach when they don't really have a clue. But probably shouldn't get into that too much. But anyway, you teach certain things, and if you get that, then you get that reward. And I think that is what it's all about.
And it's not really like basketball skills you learn. I mean, you learn that, but like life skills later in life, you remember stuff. Like I remember stuff that you say in practice that just.
Yeah, well, you hope so. You hope that's what you're doing, and it's always very rewarding when you have a kid come up to you and tell you that sort of thing. And I'm one of the older guys, and I know it probably rankled some of the kids when I would call them kids, because they were thinking of themselves as young men and that sort of thing. But I still call Kevin Stillwell, who is 61 years old, a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I call Annie King from Windsor. He's 5 years younger than I am, so he's 69. I call him a kid because I had him in school. They were
Right.
kids to me, so they'll always be kids.
Well, and the impact you had, I mean, that's got to be the biggest reward is, like you said, and what Mason's saying is a lot of times, and you can see it the older you get, the kids, they don't realize that it's more than just what it is right then. It's down the line. And, my brother's made the comment, I think, to you, but I know he has to us, is that, he wouldn't be the man he is today had he not a lot of the things that he learned from just coaching, being under you and Wolverton and guys like that just helped shape and mold and impacted them for the rest of their life. And I know there's so many people that, over the last, 50 years that you've coached that feel that way. So it's interesting, and it's got to feel good to impact that many people over that many decades.
I tell you, some of the funniest things, though, you talked about the years. I started in 69, and I quit 50 years later after I had taken a sabbatical for 15 years in there, no doubt. But one of the funniest lines, I can still remember when we pulled up that Arthur Lovington, Atwood, Hammond, or wherever this was. And
it was Altamont, I think, wasn't it? The bus driver asked you where?
No, this was up. It was up there. They'd built a new gym. The bus driver asked me where we unload. I said, I don't know. I haven't been here since 1970, and I could see all the kids going, 1970? my parents weren't born in 1970. What is he talking about?
Yeah, I remember them saying that. I remember Malcolm saying something like about it too. Like, oh my gosh, yeah. Not only us, but our parents weren't alive yet.
So, Coach, after college, was this after college when you went to Vietnam, or when was that?
Yes, it was really unusual. They had a lottery back in the day, and everybody got a number. And if you got a low number, you got drafted. But in the state of Illinois, they weren't drafting teachers. So my mom...
How far in were you into teaching?
Just 1 year. I just been in 1 year.
So you had graduated college at Eastern, you got married, and you went to Windsor, yep. And you both were teachers there, right?
Yeah, we were both teachers there. So anyway, when they had the lottery, I didn't even watch it because they didn't draft teachers. And my mom called me, and she said, Bob, you got a low number. I was in the 60s or something. And I said, Mom, don't worry about it because they don't draft teachers. Well, there were 2 counties in the state of Illinois that drafted teachers. One of them happened to be Richland. So I got a letter that my friends and neighbors wanted me to go to the Army. And I went to my superintendent over at Windsor, and he said, don't worry about it, we'll get that stopped. And they did, they got it stopped. But then as soon as school was out, I got another letter, and this time we didn't get it stopped. So I got drafted 1 year after I taught.
Tell us a little bit about that experience in Vietnam.
Well, I went over as 11 Bravo, and for most people that don't, 11 Bravo is what they call your MOS. I was infantry. But when I got there, they needed 2 physical therapist technicians, and since I had a degree in physical education, I had more kinesiology, physiology, and anatomy than most of the people they had, and there was another guy that was the same way as me. So they pulled us out, and he stayed in Saigon, and I went to Da Nang and worked in a hospital. And let me tell you, I hated it. I had never been in a situation where people were, without their limbs, and they were burnt, and they were sick, and they were dying, and, that sort of thing. I'd always been in athletics and, that sort of thing.
Right.
But my wife was back here in the country. I wasn't out in the field. It wouldn't have been fair to try to do that sort of thing. So I stayed there and did my time. And I learned some things there that I would not have learned other places that I have more respect for doctors and nurses than I would have normally, that sort of thing. But it's been so long ago, Mace, that it's almost like it really didn't happen. You know what I mean? I mean, it's been 50 years, better than that now. And I mean, I remember it, and I've got some pictures and all that kind of stuff, but I never had any trouble transitioning from there to here. I was raised that if you got drafted, you went. That was the way it was. You didn't question it. You went, you did your time, you came back, and you went back to what you were doing. So I didn't have to be out like, some of the poor guys, that sort of thing. And it was a time when the American people were against Vietnam, and
Right.
they said some things, but it's just like I always followed my dad's advice on this. Never stand on a street corner and get in an argument with an idiot, because if somebody comes by, they won't know which one is the idiot. Well, I didn't care what those people said because I considered them idiots, and I still have those kind of feelings about a lot of people, which is not acceptable in today's societies, but that's just the way it is. And so it was a time that it was different. It was interesting. It was somewhat traumatic at times, but it was just part of life.
What'd you guys do in your off time to blow off steam or whatever when you guys had downtime?
What do you think I did? I did two things. What do you think? I'll give you two guesses, and you can't miss.
Played basketball and drank beer?
Yes, that's exactly what we did.
But it was so hot in Vietnam.
You got used to it. Mace, you get used to anything.
How long did it take you to get used to the extreme heat?
I don't recall, but we would play outside. The one thing I do recall is we would play outside, and if you played outside for 2 hours, and we were tan. I mean, we were just playing in shorts and stuff, but your skin would hurt because the sun was that close to you. But I mean, you were 23 years old. You had to do something,
Mm-hmm.
And
you think it had anything to do with you're dehydrated from the Vietnamese beer you drank the night before?
No, we got American beer.
Oh, really?
Oh,
How'd
yeah,
you
we
do
got
that?
American beer. Well, they had a PX. We were on a hospital unit, and you could go over and get your beer. And you could also get your cigarettes. Now, I didn't smoke, so you had to give your cigarettes to your mama-san, the person who cleaned your house or your place, so she wouldn't steal you blind.
And they did your dry cleaning. Did they wash your clothes?
There was no dry. They washed your clothes, but there was no
Washed
dry
your clothes,
cleaning.
yeah.
You felt sorry for them because they were in a situation where they had no way out, no way to win. They'd been in a war with the French for 20-some years,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all they knew. And we probably taught them how to steal, and so that was just a situation you had to kind of use your cigarettes to keep them from stealing you blind.
And that's all for part 1 with Coach Curtis. Make sure you tune in for part 2 that features a special guest.